Hi there, this is Jacob Nash, and this is a review of Module 59 on the self. So, what is the self? Well, it is the center of personality. It's our organizer of thoughts, feelings, and actions. Self-concept is how we view ourselves. And you got into something called the halo effect, which is just that sometimes we use one trait of a person or thing to make an overall judgment of that. So sometimes people that may seem less attractive to someone may be considered have a worse judgment than someone else. Uh, Temperament. So this is just differences in the reaction and regulation. So you got to know that there's this uh, lady right here named Rothbard, Mary Rothbard, that stated that temperament is based on our any kind of negative or positive effect that we might have of something, and we got to have our ability to control it. All right, so we've already talked about four other perspectives. We're going to review them at the end a little bit because this is the last module in this unit. But the social cognitive perspective is the last one that we're talking about, which is just what it sounds like. It's combining those two perspectives that we already know. Uh, it's influence. So it just says that behavior is influenced by the interaction of traits and the social context. Um, so the behavioral approach, basically, you got to know in terms of personality. We know that learning may affect our personality. That's what some people might say. They learn to be a certain way by being around other people, which goes back to social cognitive. Uh, Reciprocal determinism is just the interacting influences of behavior, cognition, and environment. So an example would be, all right, a behavior is learning to hike. Some environmental factors would be Jim's friends. So Jim Carrey's friends. What are that? How's that going to affect him? And then cognition, his thoughts and feelings about hiking. That is literally the social cognitive theory. And then positive psychology, you just got to know that there's positive psychologists like this guy right here study the optimal functioning of humans. So that means the best that we can be, and that they promote strength to make us thrive. So it's like, let's promote this because that's going to make us better versions of ourselves. Self efficacy. This is just a sense of success and purpose. And then self esteem, in contrast, is more of just feelings of high or low self worth. What is self-serving bias? This is the idea that we easily accept our successes but not our failures, so we perceive ourselves favorably. So, is it easier for us to just remember what we've done well? Yes, but we don't usually accept or recognize the things that are our failures, so we perceive ourselves favorably. So, what is the spotlight effect? The spotlight effect is how we pretty much all feel like that we're on the Truman Show. If you've seen that movie, Jim Carrey is uh just watched his whole life is a lie because he uh is just on a show. He's been raised and had an adulthood in a like movie set. Uh, but anyways, we overestimate how much others pay attention to us. So we commonly think that everyone's watching us, but they're really not. So if you think about it, for example, a presentation. Presentations can be difficult, but if you think about it, imagine when your teacher is teaching or if you're watching someone else present. Are you really having undivided attention? Are you really paying attention to someone's appearance or the specifics? Probably not, unless you're someone that just really is strange. Most people would not do that. Potentially, if someone uh, liked someone or was like attracted by them, then they might, but that's a different story. That's not even something that someone would worry about, anyways. I mean, so that's the point of the spotlight effect. Just we think people are paying attention to us more than they are. Narcissism. You probably know what this is. It's just excessive self-love and self-absorption. So we sometimes call people narcissists, but this is actually a real psychological term. And here's one of the people, uh, Baumeister and Bushman. They uh, decided and confirmed that aggression results from criticism from these people. So if someone's a narcissist and you criticize them, then they're probably going to end up being aggressive because they're not going to believe it. Not saying that if someone gets aggressive from criticism, that means that they're a narcissist, but that's just saying that narcissists will do that. So what is individualism versus collectivism? It's just what it sounds like. So if you're an individualist, you're more focused on your own goals. If you're a collectivist, you're more focused on group goals. I mean, this is even the case if in the case of any kind of government that would be like that. I just noticed there's a semicolon right there. Uh, Whatever. Uh, that's the same thing for a government. Um, if you happen to ever have taken a government class, you would know that's what these words mean. What is the Barnum effect? This is just our tendency to accept certain information as true, such as character assessments or horoscopes, even when the information is vague to be so vague as to be worthless. So basically, we sometimes just think things are true, but like it pretty much is worthless because it's so vague. Why would we think it's true? All right, and then now let's review. So this is not just on this module, but this is just reviewing this whole unit. Um, so remember what five personality theories have we talked about? Psychoanalytic, psychodynamic, humanistic, trait, and social cognitive. So these are not the same as the theories. Like remember how we talked about in like module 2 or like at the beginning of the year. That was just theories in terms of behavior in general. These are just specifically to personality. So psychoanalytic, the person for that was Freud. Typically, well, he's more the psychodynamic when it comes to uh, behavior, but in personality, he thinks of psychoanalytic, which is more of like a outdated psychodynamic. When we talk about psychodynamic in terms of personality, it's a more updated version. But anyways, remember Freud said that we have the ID, ego, and superego. So the ID is like just everything that we want to do, but some of the things are not good. And then superego is just applying to the typical societal things. Ego is kind of a bounce in between, compromise. And then psychodynamic, remember the three people for that, Alder, Horney, and Jung, and they looked at the unconscious and conscious. And then the humanistics, remember Rogers and Maslow, they say that personality is due to a drive for self-actualization. And then trait theory, remember, is Eisner and Cattle, and they look at the big five. And then the social cognitive is Bandura. And remember that they're looking at learning and social and cognition, how those interact to make our personality. And then how can personality be researched? They might be researched by case study, survey, those are typical things, but also the projective test. Remember the TAT and Rorschach? They try to trigger, and those projective tests are trying to trigger inner dynamics. So kind of make you, I want to say go crazy, not necessarily, but just reveal the inner things. And that's what the psychodynamic people use. And then the personality inventory, like the MMPI, identifies dispositions. The trait people use that. And then the observation and experimentation, I don't really need to say what that means. You know what that means. And that's what this more of the social cognition people would use. It makes sense that they would observe and experiment. All right, let's look at some questions. An example of self-efficacy. So Early has a high sensitivity because he feels that he is successful and competent in his career, as well as effective with a sense of purpose. What concept focuses on interacting influences of behavior, internal cognition, and environment? That is reciprocal determinism. Great example of a self-serving bias. Mayu more readily accepts responsibility for her rights and her wrongs, and her successes and her failures, and perceives herself favorably. This perspective views behavior influenced by the interaction of people's traits in social context. Remember, that's social cognitive perspective. This type of culture gives priority to group goals. Collectivist uh, overestimating others, noticing of our appearance, performance, and blunders is an example of spotlight effect. Jane Bushman's and Barmeister's research on unrealistically high self-esteem and how people react to criticism. Remember, they found out that it leads to regression. And then the tendency to accept certain information as true, such as horoscopes, even when it's pretty much worthless. That's the Barnum effect. Well, there you go. Thanks for watching.